All right, we're streaming live. I'm gonna go check this to make sure this is working. And today's call's about if you're gonna to show up. If you want to go up, you got to show up. And so let me get on LinkedIn to make sure this is going. If you're on LinkedIn or you're on the YouTubes, be sure to post in the chat. I'm using Restream right now. I've used trying to see on this new laptop what we can use. The key thing about what we're going to talk about today is how to connect in a world that is overwhelmed by information. A world where frankly, there's just too much going on just to get this stupid thing to turn on here. So I'm using up some time that was from another meeting. I basically had a meeting scheduled. The other person didn't show up. And so there's still 30 minutes on the clock that I can use for something else. And that something else, which I just verified is working, is going to be this live presentation. Now, uh, we're going to talk specifically as how do we connect and how do we show up in our in front of our channels, in front of our media. And this is no fancy presentation or anything. We're just going to have a conversation. And we'll start with the call. So lately, when vendors pitch me or they want to present something to my audience, by the way, I'm Justin Hitt. I have newsletters. I have about 4 newsletters and one coaching program. Those newsletters tend to work with how to build business relationships, how to communicate more clearly, how to generate wealth in your business beyond just the so for example, the process of the business is part of the wealth in the business, the equity in the business. And so I'm more than happy to meet with people. If we do an interview, because I do need to create content for the newsletter. That's the first lesson today is that we want to stack function. If we're going to go to lunch, we might as well go to lunch with somebody else. If we're going to have a meeting, we might as well have a meeting with a prospect or somebody of value. If we're going to have a conversation, let's connect ideas with people because if I've screened the vendor and they're going to have a conversation with me about the product in the context of my subscribers, then why not? Why not record that? Now, I've been doing that for years. So at least 20 years, I've been having folks, and I got a little bit of notes on the side here. So if you see me look off the screen, I've had a lot of experience either bringing together people as roundtables, doing interviews, or doing showcases, or just talking directly to the camera like I'm doing right now and having a conversation about key ideas and concepts that are going to create results in your business. All right, so I clicked the button over here about the chats. Oh, look at that. There's some little chats on the side. I don't know if that's actual people here or if it's just an example. But the concept of nothing happens till somebody sells something that comes from Robert Ringer's book, or that you just got to show up. That's the biggest thing. So in the past, we would show up, we'd meet, I'd speak at conferences, and afterwards we'd have consultations. Um, I have no idea if this demo. Oh, it says demo chat. We're gonna put that in the corner. And all right, I'm gonna clear the demo. Okay. I am easily distracted. See, it takes me a lot of time and effort to get on a Zoom call with people. And so I'm already ready to go. I got my list of questions that I'm going to ask this vendor. I've got ideas and concepts about, hey, will your product work to solve this problem that my clients have? Will it solve this other problem my clients have? And then the vendor doesn't show up. So I give you an opportunity, I give you a chance to connect. And just so I make sure everybody can hear, I give you a chance to connect, and then you fumble and drop the ball. Now, this call right here is not scheduled. Like I said, I'm using up the time that was left. That I set aside time on my calendar to meet with somebody. I waited 15 minutes. They didn't show up. Now, I did an hour in advance to see what kind of questions I should ask. How can I make some value for my subscribers? All that jazz. And then I have uh, the 15 minutes before the call starts to log in to make sure the recording's working, to make sure the software is functioning. Like I said, I'm on a new laptop and I'm testing different things. Make sure it can do a recording, and then finally, there's no show. 15 minutes in. Now, how do you avoid wasting time on this thing? Because I'm going to encourage you to have these meetings, and then if people aren't showing up to the meetings like they used to, then how do you make the most of your time? Well, the way you make the most of your time is by having that that approach. So there's the process. How do we prepare for meetings? We show up early. We make sure everything's working. We make sure it's recording. We might have our Obsidian or whatever our note taking application is over here with some questions that we want to answer. We might have an agenda for the meeting itself. So this individual actually sent me an agenda, the key ideas they were going to cover, and what were they going to cover. So they were going to cover. Oh, we got a little delay there. They were going to cover reputational risks of amateur publishing, how shortcuts with self publishing often hurt long term authority building. I just happen to be the author of How to Establish Instant Credibility. So it could have been two peers having a conversation about whether you should hire a publishing agency, you should pitch to a literary agency, should you work with a large publisher, should you self publish the book. Now, me, I've self published god awful number of reports because most of my audience is technically oriented. I do a lot of technical writing. I do copywriting for technical type of products. I've written procedures and risks and issues and all these things. So a PDF file that looks more like a research paper has higher authority than a full color book. However, I have had good results with my full color book and I've published on different platforms. So I could bring context to the table that would provide value to the listener. Now, if you want me to have that conversation, I can have that conversation. Otherwise, I really don't follow up on people who don't show up to meetings. Because again, you have to show up to go up. If you don't get out there in front of people, now you might be thinking, well, I do 70,000 posts on YouTube every week. I do all these tweets every day. That's nothing. See, I'm trying to work out more. And so earlier today, I met with a personal trainer, and the personal trainer showed me how to use the equipment. Now, a lot of you guys probably already know how to use equipment at the gym, but he showed me how to use the different pieces of equipment at the gym. And then he said, okay, Justin, here's how you're going to adjust the chair. Here's the angle you want to work with. We talked about isolation exercises versus a more multi muscle exercise. I walked away from there so much better off than I started because I was interacting with a real human. Now, could I have gone and asked AI to do that? Well, yes, AI could have told me about the technical functions of how to use the equipment, but AI doesn't know that specific equipment. And secondly, AI isn't going to easily be able to look at me using that equipment and say, hey, you need to adjust the seat back. You need to adjust this chair up. There's things that we can do here to get better results. Are you feeling it differently in your arm? It actually said like triceps and stuff. I was like, dude, you have to tell me what a tricep is. I don't exactly know. I know some cuts of meat, but I don't know. I don't know, what part is this versus what part is this. But again, he was able to assess my needs, so I understand what my newsletter subscribers want. I understand the goals they're trying to achieve. They're subject matter experts, they're entrepreneurs, they're executives, and the more authority they have in the marketplace, the easier it is for customers and decision makers to say yes to the technical services they offer or the specialized services they offer, whether they're architects, lawyers, whether they are CPAs or accountants, whether they are like environmental. Okay, so I didn't even know this type of thing exists, but for every home with an in-ground oil tank, there are certain EPA regulations. I knew those existed because I'm a risk management professional, but there is actually different companies that are certified to do that kind of work. And if the consumer doesn't know that, they may just leave that oil tank in the ground, which it'll eventually leak because there's remediation folks that can drain the oil out of the tank. There's remediation folks that can check the site. There's remediation folks that can pull the site out of the tank out of the ground. Now, I was aware of this when I sold commercial fuel, but as a consumer, even an affluent family or high net worth individual, I specialize in helping service providers reach affluent customers. I could have just left that tank in the ground and it could have cost me extra money. Actually, one of the things about old buildings is that very often this tank is near the foundation and water can get behind the tank and then freeze, causing uh, foundation damage. Now, again, not every one of your customers are going to go seek out information, but that's like four different vendors. But so if you're a service provider in that area and you're showing up to do demonstrations, you're showing up now you can do those demonstrations at trade shows, home shows, or you can do it on YouTube. If you're showing up with information about the problem someone's facing. I didn't know I had a problem until we had a major rainstorm and the water that got into the basement had a little bit of slick on it. It had like that rainbow color on the top of it. And I was like, that looks like oil. Where is the oil coming from? And so I started looking online. And if you're not, again, so you have to show up to go up. You got to show up with meetings. You got to show up with demonstrations. You got to show up in the different media channels. Now, just showing up on the media channels, which is the easiest of all that. Like I just clicked a bunch of buttons and I'm doing a live presentation on YouTube and LinkedIn. And if I wasn't on my laptop, I probably would be sending this out to Facebook as well. So the technology is easy. Technology is easy. But what do you talk about? Will it be of value to the target audience? What are you going to offer the people who watch? Now, you guys know if you've been on my podcast, if you've been on my workshops, we do a lot of private workshops and we send those links out over email. Uh, you know that in every call I say, hey, look, if you've got questions about this that we've talked about today, and this is about showing up, this is about building relationships and establishing a network of individuals so that you can reach the maximum number of qualified prospects, sifting and sorting and all that jazz. Well, this requires you not to do what's easy. It requires you to do what works, what is necessary. So I'm sitting here in my little office. I get back from the workout. I don't even think I put away all the groceries. So I stop by the grocery store and I have they put away the cold stuff. I get on this call. Dude's a no show. So I'm going to use the rest of the time to deliver something of value to all my subscribers. But think about that. Think about how your end user, your customers, when they go on social media, they very often go on social media because they're bored, because they're just looking for stuff. There's no general purpose. They're often distracted by the TNA. They're distracted by the latest news. Distracted by Biden, Trump, Obama, Jeffrey Epstein, everybody. There's so many distractions. In fact, the platform itself is vying for your attention mechanically using psychological measures. They're trying to trip your dopamine, see what you click on, show you more content that keeps you on the platform. That you, the decision maker or your customer who makes decisions about buying what you have to offer, is just downright confused. And so that platform, while it's easy for you to post, it's not easy for them to get quality information. In fact, I on purpose have ad blocking, social media blocked, all kinds of stuff blocked, so I can get some damn work done. Because there are cool stuff on social media. There's cool things that make you feel happy. There's some things that tug your emotions, but none of that is getting any work done. And so, what would be better than that? Well, it would be better to show up with a single person or a small group of people who are specifically interested in what you have to offer. How do we know if they're interested in what you have to offer? We pre-screen. So the same reason I'm pre-screening these vendors. By the way, I had this one guy. He's pitching me on LinkedIn. I don't think I've had any decent leads off of LinkedIn in at least 5 years. But he's pitching me on the direct message, and he's saying, "Hey, are you interested in this?" And I was interested. I said, "This is what I do. If you're interested in reaching me or my audience, we do an interview. It's a conversation. I want to understand what it is that you have to offer. What are the benefits? What mistakes are we avoiding or problems we're solving? And it's you can't pitch me. You're just going to educate me about this, and this would be your informational intent content. It could bleed into commercial intent, but I just want information. If after a 15-minute call or a 30-minute call, it's something of value, then we're going to have another meeting. We can talk about how we can use it in my business, or if you are sponsoring my podcast, or you're sponsoring a workshop, or you're offering something free to my subscribers, then we could do another call that's specific for that. And so again, majority of the time, people say, "Nah, it's not something I'm interested in." Um, they often will if they are interested in it, will schedule a call. And lately, folks have not been showing up. Again, it doesn't hurt my feelings. It's just kind of odd because this would have been an opportunity that through the structure I've developed to screen vendors, that I would be able to package what we're talking about to serve the needs of my audience. Because nothing's worse than being on an hour long call with somebody trying to sell you something, and at the end you got nothing to show for it. At least I've got a podcast to show for it. I could chop that podcast up 10 ways to Sunday and do shorts and promote other longer form materials. But there was recently one guy that I said, okay, here's how it works. Click this link, schedule an appointment with me to get on my calendar, and he sends me back his link to get on his calendar. I was like, this is not going to work. Finally, I said, look, you either schedule it on my calendar through my link or you don't do it. And he's like, well, I'm not going to do it. I said, great, you failed the compliance test. And the reason I'm telling you this, folks, is because, again, with the inbox, whether it's email, social media, direct messaging, um, SMS messages, phone, it's so much easier than ever before to reach you and waste your time. So I have a compliance test, which is you click my link that I gave you, and you'll go through my Zoom, which I'm paying for the Zoom. I'm paying for the thing that records software, all those details. Now, by the way, if you're a salesperson and your company measures your KPI or your performance indicators are based on how many calls you schedule through a certain link, I don't care about that. My subscribers don't care about that. I don't give a damn. And one call isn't going to hurt anything. So click the damn link and schedule on my calendar. Why is that? Again, because I own the audience, I own the decision, and that's how you got to work with your clients. If you send your fancy little calendar link or your fancy little Zoom link or your fancy link from was it HubSpot, whatever your CRM package is, and the end user says, "Well, I don't want to click that link." Great, no problem. Send me a link to get on so we can get on to each other's calendars. Okay. Again, my audience is subject matter experts, entrepreneurs, and executives. It is a little bit of a hassle to put it on the calendar, but whoever's originating the meeting can send the link. Whoever's going to benefit most from the meeting can send the link. And if you are, again, in the mind of your buyer, thinking about their day, they're distracted, they're busy, they got work they're supposed to be doing, they got work they're actually doing, they've got challenges, financial challenges, problems they want to solve. You have to say, well, how can I be the very best thing that happened to them in the course of the day? So when I let somebody get on my calendar, I try to have them be the very best thing that happened to me that day, which should be high quality content for my subscribers, as well as identifying a possible solution. Because again, my subscribers know the problems they face. And in my role as a consultant, as an advisor, as an analyst, is to find possible solutions. I build inventories of these possible solutions. And then when my team integrates it for the client, or I go in and advise the client, we're all better for it. Now, I save a lot of time if we have a nice little video, which you'll see some of these videos. So when you see me interviewing somebody, that could be just a catch up. I've had some incredible calls with people that I've known from years ago, and then we have a call, and then I didn't record it, but it was incredible. They share insights about what they're doing. I share insights about what I'm doing. I learn things. They learn things. Wonderful call to look in on. Real insights and powerful for getting results in business. I didn't record it. I forgot to record it. They didn't record it. I didn't record it. That's the way it was. But when you see a lot of these interviews, these are not sponsored interviews, by the way. These are opportunities where I vetted or screened the individual. And I'm like, okay, well, look, like I mentioned, I'm using Restream right now. I'm using a free account of Restream, and it's allowing me to broadcast on two different channels. Saves me a tremendous amount of time. StreamYard is another product. Neither of them are sponsors or anything like that. I don't we are going to make it easier for people to sponsor channels and events and stuff, but it's all hands off. I'm not endorsing a product unless I've used it, or if I've had that conversation. Again, what are the barriers to entry? If you're going to have media, you want to protect that media by not allowing people just to willy-nilly be on it. If you're going to have access to media, you want to show up because they're doing you a huge favor. And so you want to show up with your best foot forward. You want to talk about the mistakes to avoid, the problems that your solution can help with, some of the ideas of what you do and why you do it. You're not going to be able to tell them how. We're only going to do a 30-minute talk right now. I can't tell you how to screen callers I can't give you all the details, but I can tell you it's important to have a barrier to entry. Otherwise, your calendar will be full. However, I'm perplexed why people aren't showing up. They schedule the call, they don't show up. Now, another area that's been bothering me is, again, we have these podcasts. We have video podcasts, audio podcasts, and then I have a text newsletter. Those things are part of that screening. Again, I'm providing tools for my subscribers to make decisions about whether they want to hire me or they want to hire somebody else, to make decisions on whether they have their team do X or they have their team do Y. And so those particular uh, periodic content, um, there's folks that contact me because I think there's like 4 to 8,000 people a month watching this stuff. So people contact me and say, "Hey, we'd love to have this person as a guest on your show." And I've done guests in the past. I've done interviews in the past. So if you were a client in the past, you got a monthly CD, like a CD of the month. I don't remember what company was doing that for me, but basically I had several interviews that I did over the month. I put them on a CD. I send them to my subscribers. So it was about 45 minutes of material, and it was a way for my subscribers and my clients to get like bullet point what's going on, what tools are available, what strategies are working, what's not working. And again, it's I was doing this the 1990s before YouTube. Um, because it was easier to send them a CD. I think I was paying a dollar. I was paying 50 cents if I just sent a CD. I was paying about a dollar if I sent a letter and a CD. Again, that stuff still works today. The only difference is I think I had 450 people I was doing that for every month, and they were paying in many cases either by being a client or paying for the subscription. But again, you got to show up to go up. And so if I stopped doing that, actually, it would have been profitable to do it even if I wasn't sending things out. And It was profitable to do if because I was getting high ticket consulting assignments. And ultimately, I stopped doing it because I went on this sabbatical. Um, Long story short, I took a big break from doing this consulting stuff, and then I stopped sending the things. I stopped sending the prospect newsletter. I stopped sending the CD of the month. I continue to publish the podcast. That's why we have the volume of podcasts, but I wasn't aggressively doing the follow up. And so the reason I'm saying this is that every person who doesn't show up for a call, even though I open the door, now I'm opening the door up just a little bit. Okay. I've only had maybe 50% no show on some of these things. It's because the door's just open a little bit. But I had seriously been considering doing a regular weekly because that would be 52 interviews a year. And I get a lot, I get as much out of the interview as the other person does. And then, so 52 interviews a year onto the YouTube channel would be a lot of traffic. It would be really good. Now, would it be more client work for me? Well, I'm not looking for a giant volume of client work. I'm looking for quality over quantity. But for a lot of these startups folks, they've got software as a service. They've got packages that I don't foresee them having a limit to the number of clients that they can accept. Now, I had tried affiliate marketing in the past. None of this is affiliate marketing. What I'm primarily doing is screening for possible joint ventures, because there are times where I'm working with a client where they say, "Hey, look, I'd like to have a bookstore book." I'm not going to be able to do a bookstore book. I can do a technical guide. I can do a 3-ring binder. I can do a training course or a multimedia course, but uh, my graphics art skills are not there to do that. I could put people on the team to do it, but somebody who publishes maybe 30 to 50 books a year, they're going to do a much better job. And so again, we're using the interviews to sift and sort vendors, to screen services or curate services for clients, subscribers. Now, a subscriber isn't necessarily paying any money, but some of them are. And then in the long run, the um, the content becomes an artifact that can be put out on my networks to generate leads and to create prospective customers. So let me summarize this. Again, you got to show up to go up. you as a technical services provider, as a subject matter expert, you've got to show up in front of buying prospects where they're in the mindset to learn. So we want to talk about events. If you schedule an event, they show up, you show up, everybody meets, maybe there's some questions asked. That's going to be way more valuable than just publishing a weekly newsletter or posting on social media regularly. If you're going to be posting on social media regularly, or you're going to be creating an email newsletter or a podcast, whether it's video or audio, then showing up regularly, what do you show up with? Well, you got to sift through a lot of materials. I've got to read a lot of books. I've got to have a lot of client experiences. I happen to have 30 years of experience. In the last 30 years, I have helped clients create more than $1 billion in value. So I personally am going through the case studies of everything I've done for clients over the years, and I'm presenting those. So I don't need a lot of content because, like, for example, we wrote a case study about um, optimization of periodic content. So I've written all these podcasts. I developed a system for getting traffic to the podcast, more importantly, getting leads from the podcast, getting sales from the podcast. So I could write that up into a case study, which I just finished a recent case study on that. And then I go out and get it in front of my prospects, get it in front of my clients, get in front of old accounts. What I was doing with these calls is, rather than having a pitch fest or a discovery call, is that I'd bring people on and have a conversation, because a lot of the folks I'm working with now are at they have some level of expertise above and above beyond normal. All right. So that was probably messed up the audio or something. But anyway, the takeaway is if you get an opportunity, don't waste it by not showing up. And then finally, if you do want to get interviewed for one of my podcast channels, maybe you've been a long time listener and you want to have a consultation, I do offer from time to time, and I'm doing this more now than I have in the past, the group coaching call. So we do a 15 to 45-minute conversation about a specific topic, because people send in questions all the time. And then at the end, we have a Q&A session where we can answer your questions in front of the audience. And so you benefit, they benefit. That is an example of the stacking of function. So I would take the time to talk to a vendor who might be useful to me, might be useful to my subscribers, because it's being recorded. And then whether I'm in the market or not in the market is an afterthought. The key thing is how do we present as much value as possible? Because if I can solve a problem for a client, this should work for you as well. Then very often that success is attributed to you. Now we can go into depth on this, but like I said, I only had 30 minutes to left on my time calendar. I got something else going on now, as the phone is ringing. Anyway, I'm Justin Hitt. This has been From My Desk, which is a paid newsletter that talks specifically about the things that cross my desk and they're crossing the desk of my clients. And it's really just encouraging you to show up. Again, when I stop this recording, it's going to be online forever. And so if you ask questions in the comments below, I'd love to engage that way. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of what we do here. And again, like I said, even if they don't show up, I get value out of it, as you should get value at it as well. So again, looking forward to hearing from you folks. If you're in the group coaching already, then be getting those questions together. We have another call at the end of this week. See ya. And I'll www.justinhitt.com.